11 Avenue of the Americas here in New York City. Thank you very much for joining us on this kind of chilly Tuesday morning.
Is it really that light out outside, or have we just put it? I mean, I didn't.
In our magic window?
Right. It just seems as though it's darker in here.
Well, okay. Seems pretty bright, Brian.
Okay, fine. I'm just saying there seems to be a discrepancy between our outdoor and indoor cameras.
Well, anyway,
can we look into that?
We'll put our best men and women on it.
I think there's something about Lieutenant General Michael Flynn is behind this in some way, shape, or form.
Maybe so. If you asked Sally Yates yesterday, Sally Yates, who was the former Attorney General under President Obama, appointed by President Obama, and James Clapper, the former National Intelligence Director, they were grilled by the Senate yesterday on Capitol Hill.
Right. Exactly. And so what we learned, we didn't really learn much. We learned that Sally Yates went to the White House in January and warned that apparently the Department of Justice had information that Michael Flynn had lied to White House officials regarding apparently what he had said to the Russian ambassador. And then President Trump fired Mr. Flynn later. The question, was there any collusion between the Russians and the Trump campaign? We don't know, although there are still those ongoing investigations by the House and the Senate and the FBI. The only crime that we heard about yesterday was whoever leaked Mike Flynn's name to the Washington Post after it had been unmasked by some unknown member at this point of the Obama team.
Yeah, the whole collusion thing is blowing up. There doesn't seem to be any there. You saw multiple questions to James Clapper and Sally Yates. They could not confirm or deny anything, but you could tell if there was something there, it would have been front and center. Senator Lindsey Graham went at it flat out, came up empty, but was concerned about the unmasking. Listen.
Did either of you ever request the unmasking of Mr. Trump, his associates, or any member of Congress?
Yes. In one case, I did.
Did either of you ever review classified documents in which Mr. Trump, his associates, or members of Congress had been unmasked?
Oh, yes.
You have. Can you give us details here?
No, I can't.
Ms. Yates, have you?
Yes, I have, and no, I can't give you details.
How did the conversation between the Russian ambassador and Mr. Flynn make it to the Washington Post?
I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah. Nor do I know the answer to that.
But they both said they weren't sources.
They said that they did ask for the unmasking at least one time each, but they said they did not leak it to the Post, and they're under oath, so they have to tell the truth.
And that is the big story. And Mr. Clapper, of course, has got a history. He did, unfortunately, at one point, distort what he distorted the truth. Okay, am I saying he lied?
When Senator Wyden asked him.
Right, it looks like he told a lie to Congress, but he felt like he had to protect exactly what was going on at the NSA. But once again, the only crime was somebody from the Obama administration unmasked names, including Michael Flynn, and then somebody then leaked it to the Washington Post. That, regarding the surveillance, is the big story. And Donald Trump himself, the president, tweeted that out.
That's right. He said the biggest story today between Clapper and Yates is on surveillance. Why doesn't the media report on this? Hashtag fake news. He tweeted a lot yesterday, and some of the tweets were saying there's no evidence of collusion with Russia and Trump, that she said nothing but old news, and he's exactly right. We didn't learn anything new yesterday. We learned that they weren't the leakers and that they did ask for the unmasking.
I don't think the president should be tweeting this. Forget it. Move past it. There's no there.
It's been 7 months since the collusion story came out, and they still don't have any proof.
Let Hillary Clinton look back. The president, you got the job. Let's move forward.
Exactly.
And that Sally Yates is gone. James Clapper wasn't asked to stick around. Meanwhile, how did everybody else cover it? Here's a quick look, 36 seconds worth.
Tonight, breaking news. For the first time, former acting AG Sally Yates revealing how she warned the White House about former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn.
Sally Yates breaks her silence, revealing for the first time how she sounded the alarm to the Trump White House that Flynn was lying about his conduct, compromised, and could be blackmailed by Russia.
Team Trump was warned about Flynn by President Obama in a meeting with the president-elect and by Acting Attorney General Sally Yates because she knew Michael Flynn lied to the vice president.
For President Obama not to get along with a general, that is not unusual. For 8 years, he seems to clash with almost every general. Number two is, just keep in mind, all these things look bad for Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, but we have not heard from Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. And if you meet him one-on-one is extremely impressive. You look at his background, it is extremely impressive. I look forward to the day where he gets a chance to defend himself because he's been vilified everywhere.
Served our country for decades. Yes, he's a general, amazing man. But in December, when he met with the ambassador of Russia, why he lied about what they talked about is beyond me. They talked about sanctions, and he lied about it. But that was the biggest story in December. That's like us sitting down with President Trump in November and not talking about the election. So why he lied about that, I'm not sure of, but he did lie about it. The vice president was caught on TV saying they didn't talk about sanctions. Turns out they did. So President Trump fired him about 2 weeks later, 18 days later, after the story broke.
Right, exactly. And all we heard from Sally Yates yesterday was that something about his conduct was problematic. It was problematic, but we don't know what. And so he was fired despite the evidence that he had conveyed any compromising information. We don't know what it was, but thanks to the Washington Post, we know that it was regarding sanctions. Going back to the only crime committed that we know of so far, there was no collusion or anything else that we know of, was the surveillance and the unmasking. And Lindsey Graham made it very clear why everybody should be worried about that. Listen.
Here's why it's important to know about the unmasking of the conversation between the ambassador and General Flynn. Somebody took that information and leaked it to the Washington Post, and you cannot allow intelligence to be politicized. So I want to get to the bottom line of who did that. And there's a small universe of people can ask the intelligence community to give them conversations between a foreign agent and an American citizen.
Because this whole Surveillance Act is going to be renewed or not renewed. I think the 5-year expirations come up on it if the American people don't feel secure about who's being asked, masked and unmasked. Remember, there were hundreds of requests in the final year of the Obama administration, and the president indicates that maybe he believes that him and his team were part of those requests, maybe for reasons that don't have anything to do with national security. So that could cause the whole thing to implode.
Well, it's like Lindsey Graham said, and like the president said, the biggest story here is the surveillance. That is illegal. Sure. You're not allowed, if you're in the intelligence community, to have classified information and to release it to the press. That is unacceptable. It's a felony. So we need to find out who did that. The collusion thing, we're a news agency. If there is collusion there, we want to know about it. We'll report on it. But so far, there's no evidence.
You know, if you dig deep into this New York Times, it's like page 18, they talk about how not only does collusion didn't exist, but they talk about even all the polls leading up to this election, even though James Comey aside, showed Donald Trump was surging ahead of Hillary Clinton before any letters were released and before any collusion evidently took place, which now we know so far there's no indication it did.
There was one other kind of tantalizing line of questioning, and I watched pretty much the whole thing yesterday, was the talk that there are rumors, it sounds like, in Washington that the surveillance apparatus for the United States government not only spied on Donald Trump and his team, but it sounds like they also may have spied on other presidential candidates from maybe both parties and other members of Congress, given the kind of questions that they were asking. So that is out there. And we've heard the rumors, but that was actually part of the testimony and the questioning yesterday on Capitol Hill.
Rand Paul said that last night with Hannity. He said it on May 5th as well. I want to find out if my name popped up, and no one's answering that question.
Your name?
No, Rand Paul says he wants to know if his name is popped up.
It sounded like you wanted to know if your name popped up.
You know, I'd welcome my phone calls to be public.
What would we learn? Where is soccer practice on Saturday?
Exactly. Who was supposed to pick up Caitlin? Why is she alone on the street?
Well, we know we popped up in WikiLeaks. We've been in WikiLeaks a bunch of times.
I didn't know that. We have?
Yeah, sure.
Did I say anything interesting?
Yeah.
Because I can't remember yesterday.
I'm pretty sure
not.
It was just a transcript from the show.
Right.
All right, let's hand it over to Jackie, who has some headlines for us. Good morning.
Good morning, Ainsley. Good morning, fellas. Nice to see you there, and nice to have everyone at home. An airport terminal looking more like a scene from Fight Club. Hundreds of stranded passengers demanding answers after Spirit Airlines canceled 9 flights at Fort Lauderdale Airport. Police forced to step in when travelers started violently pounding the counters. Then a brawl broke out. Look at this. seems to never stop there in airports. Several people taken into custody. Spirit canceling 300 flights in the past week as pilots negotiate contracts. And the man accused of killing random people and terrorizing a city in a months-long shooting spree is finally behind bars. This guy, Phoenix police linking 23-year-old Aaron Sestito to 9 murders and a dozen shootings between August of 2015 and July of 2016. He was arrested last month, suspected of killing his mother's boyfriend before investigators connected him to the shooting spree. And from the TV screen to the political stage, actor and President Trump supporter Antonio Sabato Jr. is running for Congress. The former Melrose Place star taking on California Representative and Democrat Julia Brownley. Sabato Jr. says Hollywood blacklisted him after giving a speech at the Republican National Convention, calling our commander-in-chief the unity candidate. And those are your headlines. Back to you guys on this Tuesday morning.
I wonder if he has a chance in California.
I don't know. Like I said yesterday, it's got to be hard to be a Republican in Hollywood.
Right.
Yeah.
Indeed.
He could run on the heartthrob ticket. Which is, I mean, it's an independent party, which I'm not eligible for.
All right. Thank you very much,
Thanks,
Jackie. All right. Coming up on this Tuesday, illegals on the verge of deportation fighting back with a little help from you. Why are your tax dollars being funded to mount a defense for them?
And don't let many in the media fool you. Small business owners want Obamacare gone. But are they happy with the replacement? That answer next.
Hello, this is Fox Extra. Buongiorno to our friends watching in Italy, and thank you for choosing Fox. You can catch both Fox News and Fox Business on Sky Italia. Keep it right here.
It is a massive fighting machine. The aircraft carrier USS Harry S. Truman is 20 stories tall, 5 acres wide, carrying 75 aircraft and 5,000 sailors, all zeroing in on ISIS.
We've been very successful in the missions that we've been tasked to execute throughout the Operation Inherent Resolve theater.
The ship has been out some 7 months, first in the Persian Gulf and now in the eastern Mediterranean, closer in to the ISIS terror group's Syrian headquarters.
This is a 1,000-pound weight class right here. And the
1,000 pounds.
Yes, sir.
The Truman's pilots have dropped over 1,500 bombs, more than 1.5 million pounds worth. All the while, it's claimed ISIS-held territory has shrunk. The terror group has weakened. The mass shooting in Orlando, Florida, remembered here in the eastern Mediterranean. The American flag flying at half-mast on board the USS Harry S. Truman aircraft carrier. The pilots here are hitting ISIS targets in Syria and Iraq. One told me it brings it all home. One Truman pilot with that Orlando terror attack on his mind is 35-year-old Filipino immigrant and California resident Paolo Singh. He's flown 150 missions, day and night, sometimes staying aloft for 8 long hours before hitting his mark.
What we're doing here is about stopping that ideology from spreading around the world, and the more we can do to keep that from happening, the more I'm willing to keep on doing it.
Echoing that feeling, the sailor men and women, mostly young, who keep the planes flying, the ship cruising, and the brass shining.
We work hard every day. We stay dedicated. We stay strong. Times get tough sometimes, but you just realize the bigger picture is what we're doing for the people back home. So.
Right full rudder. Right full rudder, aye, sir.
The ship's brass rejects charges the war against ISIS has been too slow and too much from the air. They also point to terror communication and funding lines disrupted. They do admit, in part, they are buying time for fighting forces on the ground to get their act together. There are other benefits, though, to being in the eastern Mediterranean, like poking a finger in the eye of Russia, also active in the region.
We definitely know that the Russians know that we're here. We operate in country. They know that we're there.
Still, after a long time at sea, all are looking forward to heading to their Virginia home port in mid-July. I bet you're eager to get home.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm ready. I'm ready. It's about time.
Everybody, yeah?
Yeah, everyone.
It's not time, however, to call time on the war on ISIS.
In fact, the Truman now has company, also in the Mediterranean, on its way to its own anti-ISIS mission, the aircraft carrier, the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower. And in the Persian Gulf, the Navy ship, the USS Boxer, is now sending jets against ISIS as well. Game on. On the island of Crete in the eastern Mediterranean, Greg Palcott, Fox News.
Well, House Republicans are promising small business owners that the Obamacare replacement bill is going to be a big win for everybody.
We take a giant step toward a day when Americans aren't forced to buy health care they don't want and can't afford. And small businesses are no longer forced to offer health care their workers can't afford either.
That's right. A recent survey found 60% of small business owners were hoping Obamacare would be repealed. So will they accept the replacement bill, whatever that winds up being? Here to discuss is financial analyst Heather Zumarraga. Heather, good morning to you.
Good morning, Steve.
Okay, we're going to put something up on the screen right now. The top 3 issues small business owners want the president to address: health care, tax reform, and jobs. All right, we knew that. But why is it 60% of small business owners want the Affordable Care Act done away with?
When we study the economy and you look at small business owners and what they want, you put your blood, sweat, and tears into the small business is your baby. And the last thing you want is for someone to government mandate or anyone to mandate how you run your business. Of course, you want to give your employees the best benefits possible and the highest wages you can on a competitive basis. But if it puts you out of business due to the cost of premiums,
sure,
then you can't even employ these people. So it's a net negative in the end if small businesses can't afford it.
Sure. You know, we've talked for years about the impact on the individual person who's getting the insurance, but sometimes we don't talk as much about the actual business. You know, if you have a certain number of employees, then you've got to cover them. Then you've got to pay for them. If you have too many, or if the person is full-time, you think, you know, I really can't afford that, so I'm going to have to cut them back from 40 hours a week to 30 hours a week so I don't have to buy their health care.
You're right, Steve. Why grow your business? GDP right now is anemic. It's a 0.7% first quarter growth in this country right now. So we want small businesses to grow from 49 to, say, 100 employees.
Sure.
And Obamacare has perhaps stopped or prevented them from growing their business, because if they don't want to insure their employees, of course, you have to pay a penalty, which some employers may have paid. But the harsh reality may be that those small businesses that do have over 50 employees right now, they've already had to insure their employers or pay that penalty. But if that happens and Obamacare is repealed, the small business owners are not going to go back and say, you know, just kidding, we're not going to insure you anymore. The employers would have massive uprisings and go to bigger corporations who can afford to pay competitive benefits. So hopefully this does provide big tax cuts to small business owners, but some of it is already so entangled and so entrenched that it's hard to get out from under it.
You know, and Heather, I think you touched on it earlier, the mandates. You don't, if you're running a business, you don't like the government telling you how to run your business ultimately. And when it comes to the actual care, people are hoping that whatever the Republican health care bill is going to be, it's more reasonably priced, and it's just outright better than the last
we
one.
have to lower the premiums, and you look at the tax implications, $172 billion would be saved from the investment income, 3.8% surcharge that would be repealed, as well as $270 billion tax cut back in your pocket coming from the employer mandate tax being lifted if the Republican health care bill passed. But we're going to see a lot of ping-ponging back and forth between House and Senate over the next few months before we can come up with a compromise.
You were right about that. All right.
Yes,
Heather Zumarraga joining us from D.C. Heather, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. It is 6:20 now here in New York City. Coming up, the crime is horrific. 2 Boston doctors found murdered in cold blood. This morning, a big update. The text message taking us inside their final moments. We'll share that with you coming up. And he was busted at the airport on his way to join ISIS, but he wasn't thrown in jail. He was sent to terror rehab. So how does terror rehab work? We're going to explain.
Some quick headlines for you. The White House might expand the electronic ban on U.S.-bound flights. Right now, devices that are larger than a cell phone are not allowed in carry-on bags if you're flying from 10 airports in the Middle East and in North Africa. But the Department of Homeland Security is thinking about adding Europe and the UK to ensure safe travel. What do you think about that? This proposal coming as the TSA lays out new security guidelines to prevent terror attacks. The agency worried about soft targets in the areas outside of security screenings. The TSA is focusing on airport surveillance technology as well as prevention and protection. Brian?
All right, thanks, Ainsley. Hey, think jihadists could be rehabbed? One Minnesota judge was certain of it. And after 21-year-old Abdullah Muhammad Youssef was convicted of plotting to board a plane and join ISIS in Syria, that judge decided to enroll him in an experimental terrorist rehab program. Just 6 months later, Youssef busted watching a documentary on ISIS. Stunner. Here to react is retired Homeland Security official Philip Haney. He has spent more than a dozen years screening for jihadists and exposes the government's issues with fighting terror in his brand new book, See Something, Say Nothing. First off, Phil, are you surprised in this case it didn't work?
No, not at all, because it's illegal according to Sharia law to turn away from jihad. That's considered apostasy. And the very concept of a rehabilitation program, according to Islam, is considered blasphemy, because any criticism, if you're in a rehab program, that means there must be something wrong with Islam. So you have apostasy, you have blasphemy, and you also have a concept called loyalty and enmity, where Muslims are required to make choices between what they love and what they hate. And those three very powerful gravitational forces influence the entire global Islamic world.
So, you know, it's amazing, too, if people hoping that those in Gitmo change their ways, the only hope they could have is that if they were falsely imprisoned. Because if they were in prison for being a member of ISIS or Al-Qaeda or Al-Shabaab or another Islamic extremist sect, and they're legitimately guilty, they're going to go back and do what they've been doing.
That's exactly what they did. They have to demonstrate that they're still loyal to Islam. So immediately they're going to go back and demonstrate that loyalty, as I mentioned, enmity and loyalty. So they have to. They're forced by their ideology to return.
So some people are listening right now and are saying, listen, we get gang members reformed. Some of them used to be in the Bloods or the Crips or MS-13. We have people who get off drugs and they get reformed. Why can't a jihadist get reformed?
Because it's a capital offense. If you commit blasphemy or apostasy, or you don't make the right choices regarding enmity and loyalty, you can be killed for it. So that's a little different of a pressure.
That's true. The Saudis think they can rehab you. A lot of times they have this re-education camp about Islamic extremists. Is that a folly, and do they know it?
Yeah, they do know it. It's basically a cover CYA operation, because they know that the recidivism, the return is very high. I think the numbers range somewhere overall between Denmark, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, and other areas, even Gitmo itself, somewhere between 40 and 60% of the individuals go back to the battlefield immediately.
And Phil, a lot of people say that, okay, so if you're a 24-year-old and you're in jail from an Islamic extremist and you say you reformed your ways, are you saying the only way that Phil Haney would be convinced from what you've seen is for them to leave Islam altogether?
Well, that's a hard choice. Let's face it. It's illegal. It's a capital offense to leave Islam. But we're never going to develop an approach that's effective if we avoid discussing these very difficult subjects. It's a capital offense to leave Islam. It's called apostasy.
All right. And
so I guess we have to deal with that.
And I guess this judge is just being naive.
Well, let's just hope he's not aware, and that once he does hear this program, he'll reconsider his approach.
All right, Phil Haney, you paint a dark picture, but one, sadly, from your years of experience. Retired DHS employee Phil Haney, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, next on our rundown, if you have a different one at home, please yell out. Illegals on the verge of deportation, fighting back with a little help from you. Why are your tax dollars being used to fund this and their defense? And the video. I cannot believe people on the ground are not safe from drones.
Well, think about it. It sounds like the drone was just in front of the bicyclists. So had it gotten... Anyway, they're lucky they didn't get hit by the rotors.
He's lucky that just the bike was damaged, that he was not damaged. So he's okay. That happened in Sacramento. There's a lot happening in that city. Shielding criminals on your dime, Brian. Outrage is boiling over in this major U.S. city,
where taxpayers are now being forced to pay legal fees for illegal immigrants.
All right, now Fox News radio host and author of The Deplorables Guide to Making America Great Again, Todd Starnes, saw this and wants to talk about it. Hey, Todd.
Good morning, guys. Causing lots of microaggressions out there in Sacramento, this new policy.
Tell us about it.
So look, about 10% of the people who live in Sacramento are illegal aliens. So they're living in this country illegally on the taxpayer dime. And the Sacramento City Council passed a resolution, and they're going to allocate up to $300,000 of their tax money, the local folks' tax money, to a legal fund to help illegals when they find themselves in criminal activities.
How do the people in Sacramento, the 90% who are in the city legally, how do they feel about their taxpayer money being used to keep the illegals in the town?
Well, look, they think it's deplorable, and they're saying that money could be used for a lot of other things. As a matter of fact, one local Republican suggested they take that money and use it to help the homeless who are living in America legally. But again, it's the idea that there's one set of rules for Americans, law-abiding Americans, and there's another set of rules for the illegal aliens. And, there was a time in this country, folks, when you had people from one country coming into another country without permission. They used to call that an invasion, and they used to fight wars over stuff like that. But these days, it's a voter registration drive for the DNC.
What's happening at Emory?
Oh, sweet Lord. Okay. First of all, Emory University is a private school, so this is really an alumni issue and not necessarily a taxpayer issue. But Emory University is giving 100% financial aid to every illegal immigrant student. Every single one of them.
How do you apply? Can you be in another country, apply, and then come?
You come in at midnight in a silhouette.
You have to be in Georgia.
Now, here's the kick in the pants. So, say you're an international student and you come here legally. You got to pay 100%. You got to pay your own way.
Okay.
American students have to pay their own way as well. But illegal aliens, they get the 100% financial aid. Now, here's the issue with Emory. You might remember back in the 2016 presidential campaign, one of the first documented instances of Trump derangement syndrome happened at Emory when somebody wrote Trump 2016 on a sidewalk in chalk.
Oh, that's
and students went bonkers. Raging microaggressions.
Well, listen, you have a choice. These people out there, these parents out there who are hearing this story and are outraged, don't send your kid there. That'll send a message to Emory.
You kind of expect that in Sacramento, but Emory?
In
that's
Georgia.
A southern school in Georgia.
That's our neck of the woods, Ainsley.
Right.
I mean, sweet mercy.
And it's so hard to get in there. Are they kind of accepting anyone who's an illegal, or you have to get in first and then?
Well, you do have to get in first, so they're not accepting just anybody.
Yeah, I'm sure they show up with their transcripts, and I'm sure they're authentic.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah. They climb into the bursar office in the Serpentine. They run in and out, and they make the quick application, and they run out.
By the way, I'm going to be this weekend. I'm going to be at Toccoa Falls Christian College, which is in North Georgia, and they're huge Fox and Friends fans. Huge.
What are you doing there? Are you going to be speaking?
I'm going to be speaking.
Fantastic.
Got great students up there.
All right. And you could also sing and dance, so don't be afraid to break out those skills.
Ryan's books.
Right. Fantastic.
Todd, thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
He's not deplorable. He just wrote about it.
I love your expressions.
Right here.
Sweet Lord.
All right. It is 22 minutes now before the top of the hour, and Jackie Ibanez joins us today with the news.
Hi, good morning. Good morning, Todd. Nice to see you. Well, horrifying new details this morning about the gruesome double murder of these two engaged doctors. An ex-convict pleading not guilty from his hospital bed in Boston. The West African immigrant is accused of breaking into the couple's home, slitting their throats, and writing a revenge message in blood on their wall. One of the doctors texting a friend for help moments before dying. The suspected killer is a former security guard there at the condo complex. He was just released from jail for robbing a bank. And a horrifying new report finding more than 100 veterans died while waiting for care in Los Angeles. Over a 9-month period, 43% of veterans who died were still waiting on care due to improper delays. The report claims many of those delays were because staff didn't follow protocol or entered wrong information into a patient's chart. And Twitter having a field day after New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio lectures Texas Governor Greg Abbott on public safety. Governor Abbott signing a bill banning sanctuary cities. Mayor de Blasio tweeting this, quote, "This will not make Texas safer." Twitter users jumping on him for it. John responding like this, because enforcing the law doesn't work. And Tom writing this, working on NYC and let Texas take care of their own. And those are your headlines. Back to you guys on the Curvy Couch.
Okay, Jackie, thank you.
Thank you, Jackie.
All right, now, Urgent mandatory evacuations underway as we speak as out-of-control wildfires are scorching 130,000 acres in the south. Hundreds of people refusing, though, to leave their homes.
My word. In Georgia, high temperatures and low humidity intensifying the flames. They were ignited by a lightning strike last month.
The fire's so heated near the Florida-Georgia line, you can even see smoke billowing from space.
Is that real?
Yeah, look.
It is indeed. From NOAA. Janice Dean standing by. Will that area see any relief anytime soon, I guess, in the form of some rain?
No, we've been looking at that. It's been one of the worst wildfire seasons in Florida and South Georgia in several years. Let's take a look at the maps, and I'll show you where we're dealing with the potential for more wildfire danger. So we have a trough across the Northeast, which is bringing those cooler temperatures here in New York City and up towards New England. And then we have a storm to the west of us that is also going to bring the potential for severe weather across the central U.S. and the Plain States. And then across Florida, there's the drought monitor. So they're into moderate to severe to extreme drought, especially across South Florida, Central Florida. And we have elevated fire danger in this area and 100,000 acres or more of fires burning. So one of the worst wildfire seasons so far. And May is typically the driest season for Florida, and there's not a lot of relief in the forecast, unfortunately, when it comes to rain, talking about temperatures in the 80s and the 90s. All right, real quick, these are not my relatives, but I wanted to introduce you. What's your name?
I'm Bruce Rice.
And?
Kim Rice.
And where are you from?
Cincinnati.
And look at this beautiful sign that they brought. We love Janice Dean. That's amazing. Thank you.
Birthday.
Oh, it's my birthday today. How could you tell? Am I wearing a little tiara? I am.
Happy birthday, Janice.
Thank you. Thank you, my friends. When are you leaving?
Tomorrow.
Are you going to maybe share some birthday cake with me later?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, stick around.
Wait, did you bring cake?
Why do you think there's birthday cake later?
Well, because Shannon Bream is going to be celebrating my birthday later on with me, and I thought maybe she would bring me a little birthday cake.
Shannon Bream.
This is good news. We can save money.
Janice,
yes, honey.
Those nice folks were here yesterday, and when the three of us went outside, they flipped the sign over.
Flip the sign.
Because they didn't want to hurt our feelings.
It's okay. Cincy loves Fox and Friends.
But we know who they really love. They love the birthday girl.
They are brilliant. They have figured a way to get on TV.
That's right.
Right.
Give me some hugs.
That looks so professional. It's like they went to Vistaprint.
There you go.
Right?
All right.
Because you could design your own apparel.
Is that one of your sponsors for radio?
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
Everyone buy Vistaprint.
Right.
Well, you can get all those business cards for like $9.
No, Steve, no. It's $500 for $9.99.
Well, that's what he said, I think.
Yeah, but it's more $10.
Okay. Anyway.
All right, Democrats desperately trying to keep the Russia collusion narrative alive any way that they can. You know this. But did they finally get shut down for good? Judge Andrew Napolitano is going to join us live to react next.
And President Trump blamed for a number of outrageous things. Now you can add divorce to that list. We'll give you the stats.
But first, happy birthday not only to Janice Dean, but to our friend Dana Perino, the co-host of The Five, is celebrating her birthday today.
Happy birthday.
Right.
Get away from me, American woman. Mama, let me be free. Don't come knocking on my door.
The change in seasons can be a burden for those who suffer from seasonal allergies. While colder weather often brings relief if you suffer from outdoor allergies, some doctors say it could bring problems for indoor allergy sufferers.
If they have indoor allergens related to animal dander, to the dust mites, and some people have problems with cockroaches, that exposure is just going to be higher, and they'll have more symptoms related to being indoors rather than outdoors.
Dr. Pien says that while air purifiers can help with some allergens, it can worsen others like dust mites and mold because they thrive in humidity. When the temperature drops, confusion between allergies and viral infections go up.
This time of year, when people are staying indoors more, when viruses are more prone to become a problem, probably would be a consideration for some of their symptoms. So you're going to want to see, is it really my allergies or is it something like an upper respiratory infection?
Dr. Pien says it's important to keep temperature change in mind when traveling during winter months. She advises taking allergy medications before heading into a situation where allergies can be aggravated. I'm Dr. Manny, Fox News.
It's like an outer-body experience.
Steve Zumas races his drone to victory while watching a live feed through a pair of goggles.
You get a full-body rush. I mean, your hands tremble. You get to learn to control your nerves, and that's part of racing. But it's like nothing else I've ever done in my life.
Zumas won this race in Miami's Sun Life Stadium, organized by the Drone Racing League, or DRL.
There's organized drone racing in almost every country I've ever looked at. And so we're focusing on taking that hobby, that exciting new sport, and turning it into something professional, something that people can watch at home or in stadiums and get excited about.
Competitive video gaming, or esports, generated nearly $750 million in revenue last year, according to SuperData Research. Analysts say drone racing needs to attract major investment in advertisers to tap into this.
Certainly it has potential in that it builds on a few things that are very popular right now. People are buying drones. People love playing video games. It's a spectacular thing to watch.
Like NASCAR, epic crashes add to the excitement of drone races, but without risk of injury to the pilot.
You definitely take more chances because you know that if you crash, you change a couple of props and you're able to go to work the next day.
Steve Zumas, who's a self-employed home builder by day, will soon be in the air again in an upcoming drone race in Dubai. In Atlanta, Jonathan Seri, Fox News.